Welcome back, parents. This is the second part of our two-part series on anxiety. So we want to end the presentation by just talking about some really practical ways that you can help your child at home. So the first thing we like to encourage you to do is use the acronym of SUPPORT. So showing your child examples of how you positively deal with anxiety, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Showing understanding, taking a patient approach, prompting them to try new skills, observing what they're doing well, rewarding them for trying new skills, and then just talking through it. So, a little bit more about showing your child how to cope in a healthy way. We talked previously in the last section about there's a strong link between student anxiety and parent anxiety. And so we really want to emphasize that by you modeling positive and productive responses, to your own anxiety or situations that come up in your life, you are modeling for your child how to adapt and how to handle it in a healthy way. So an example of this might be sharing with your child, I was feeling really anxious this morning about work because there's a lot on my plate and I tried this tool, and this tool, and this is what helped me to feel less anxious. And the day actually turned out okay. So just showing your child how you are implementing some tools in your own life is going to be a great model for them. Understanding that your child is struggling is a huge thing. So this is not an excuse or a form of rebellion. A lot of times parents think that their child is using anxiety to get out of something, which sometimes kids do that. But a lot of our students are not. They really are struggling. And so we also encourage people to, rather than assure their kids it will be okay, help them to separate their identity from the anxiety. So with younger kids, this can look like creating a character like the worry monster. And so encouraging your student when they are feeling overwhelmed to talk to their anxiety. And, so if they're saying that they're feeling nervous about school tomorrow, you can have the worry monster come out and use that as like a way for them to talk to their anxiety. So ask them, what do you want to say to the worry monster? Or how do we want to ask the worry monster to leave? And then when it comes to older kids, obviously you're not going to want to use the worry monster, but helping them to identify what lies maybe they're believing about their anxiety and helping them to see that their anxiety is separate from them. They are not tied to it. Patiently approaching the issue is going to be really valuable. So as parents, a lot of times we think, okay, I'm getting my kid into counseling to treat their anxiety and things should be great. They've gone to a couple sessions now and I don't understand why things aren't better. We can't expect that change is going to happen overnight. And so by practicing patience and keeping track of any small improvements that you see in your child and celebrating those improvements, that's really going to help support them. Prompting new skills. So rather than trying to accommodate for your child's anxiety and removing every anxiety producing situation from their life, still allowing those situations to happen, but giving them some tools to use to cope with those can be really valuable. The first thing we have is guided imagery. So for all these resources I'm going to share right now, we have them linked into this HyperDoc as well. Some handouts that we've created to go with these. So guided imagery is just helping your child to kind of separate themselves again and just imagine some other things that are going on and help them imagine being in a safe place. And by doing that, this is going to decrease their anxiety. Snow globes are another big thing. We have a resource linked in for how to create a snow globe at home. The reason we have this is because a lot of times students have found that when they shake up a snow globe and they look at the glitter inside or whatever the substance inside is, it's really reflective of how their brain is feeling. Those thoughts that are just swirling around out of control. And when they just focus on the dust or the sparkles settling on the bottom slowly, this is a mindful activity. And students have found that it can decrease anxiety. So a lot of times we have students that will keep like a snow globe on their desk. And if they're feeling overwhelmed, it's something that they can use. Progressive muscle relaxation. We also have a handout for this. And this is just a way to walk your child through just going through different muscles of the body, tensing them, and then releasing. This is great because this is something that they can do in the classroom setting and no one can even notice that they're doing it. It can be very discreet. Sensory grounding is another thing that we like to encourage kids to do. So we have a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 handout attached to this presentation. And so it's just helping kids to look around their surroundings and just identify like concrete things that are around them to help them be grounded and present. Soothing sounds app. So if kids are having a hard time going to sleep, this is a tool that they can use. There's tons of apps out there that can help them to just relax and listen to calming noises like the ocean or rainfall. It's also really important to be aware of exercise and nutrition and how that impacts your child's anxiety. So we have another handout that does talk about some nutrition and some foods that can be triggering for students and increase their anxiety and some things that can be helpful for them. And then as far as exercise, there's a ton of research that shows that it can be really helpful in decreasing anxiety. And so you'll see a lot of therapists will kind of prescribe exercise almost like they prescribe a medication and encouraging people to participate in exercise daily. Mindfulness coloring is another thing that we really like to emphasize. So there's a ton of research that shows that coloring in geometric patterns can significantly decrease anxiety. And there's lots of articles about that go more into that. But we really encourage students to practice mindful coloring. And there's tons of adult coloring books out there. We also have linked in some free printable coloring sheets that you can utilize at home. And then moving on to other ways to support your child besides these tools, just observing your child, not necessarily to protect your child because you can't protect them from every anxiety-producing situation they might encounter, but just protecting, being ready to intervene if necessary. So learning your child's patterns. If you know that they typically get really anxious on the drive to school, being able to introduce some of these tools on that drive to school and being proactive with that. And then rewarding and praising their efforts. So you want to really make sure that you're rewarding the testing of the new skill, even if it's not effective. So for younger kids, a lot of times we use sticker charts. For older kids, planning celebrations like, hey, I noticed that you tried mindful coloring every day this week. May or may not have made a difference, but let's go out to ice cream or something to celebrate that you were willing to try something new. And then lastly, talking about it. You want to make sure that the topic of anxiety is something that's not taboo in your home. A lot of kids are not comfortable bringing it up themselves. But if you're able to initiate the conversation, this can be really helpful. A lot of parents have found that establishing a worry time can be helpful as well. So just a certain time of day, whether it's right when they get home from school or right before bed, where kids can just kind of vent all of the things that are on their mind, and you don't necessarily need to try and fix it, but just giving them a safe space to share what they're struggling with. So we hope that this was helpful for you and that you found some tangible things that you can implement with your kids and that you can continue using the resources that we have linked into this presentation.